a coach. I'm a coach and consultant, and also a woman that's very passionate about the healing journey of an individual. Gender, it doesn't matter what gender, nothing, just people healing and being on an evolution journey that I believe is a gift for every one of us in this lifetime. So I'm very passionate about that. I'm passionate about the small things that we can do to sometimes gain traction in our life, heal, grow, and evolve. So that's something else I'll add. I am excited about the summit for sure.
Yeah, me too.
I am excited. Just the title alone, I believe is just such a covering for whoever's going to be attending, to know that it's to step out of something, to step into something, I think, so, but be more comfortable with who we are and our identity, and with that, our voice. And I know from my journey, that's been a journey within itself, just, I would have to say my healing journey started with getting a hold of my own voice, because I was so silenced for so many years. But once I got that, see, this is the thing. I feel like it's such a predecessor to so much more that happens in our healing journey. Like, we have to be able to connect to ourselves in that manner. We have to be able to know that we matter, that our voice matter, that there's purpose, that there's a design and intention for our lives in such a way that we can't even understand. But getting in tune with our voice and who we are, our identity, is such like fundamental, I think, to any other healing that's welcome in our lives.
I love that. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I agree, right? And that probably leads us to your journey and what you're going to share. Because again, right, there's many different types of trauma, and our voice, right, in any area of that trauma, Alexander, as you mentioned, there's like levels, right, to finding our voice in that area. And sort of like thunder, right? It gets louder and louder and vibrates. So it definitely is a journey. And tonight, I know you want to share part of your journey, right? So I want to ask you, I'm excited to hear, what part of your trauma journey do you want to share with the people watching?
I'll word it this way. It was an area in my life that has so much shame and sadness, grief, condemnation, an area that I kept in silence for so long. And I think the shame contributes to that. You don't feel good about sharing stuff, even with safe people. When you feel not so good about it, when you feel like you can't even put words to it or explain it. So I think I'm going to share a little bit about that.
That's good. So yeah, go ahead.
Very early on in my journey, I would probably say maybe 13 years ago, one of the areas that God dealt with in my life was sexual trauma. And in that was the time of just working with him and healing on choices that I made throughout that lifetime, throughout that way of living, way of how I carried myself. And I want to talk about how he welcomed me to present to him an area of pain, particularly the area of making a conscious decision on having multiple abortions and terminating pregnancy. The first thing I want to share is being sensitive to people that have already made this decision, that may be listening to this and know that this is not a right or wrong discussion or anything that should have been done differently. I think everyone's on their own journey when it comes to their own life, and I want to be respectful of that. I want to share what happened with me. So in this journey, after dealing with some sexual trauma, there was consequences from some of that. And I say consequences because I was putting myself out there, just being promiscuous and things like that. So throughout my 20s, I made some choices about terminating pregnancy. And when I brought this area before God, I remember clearly asking him, I remember at that moment asking him, what are the lies that I believed that contribute to this? Like, I wanted to be able to understand at such a deeper level what happened, like what contribute to me choosing, because it's a choice, and I wanted to work through that. But what was interesting to me is I asked, expose the lie. I specifically asked, like, what lie was I believing? And for my own journey, it's been very valuable to embark spiritually in ways that I ask, like, show me what I'm not seeing, show me what I believed, show me where I was rooted in. And I'll say this, I would never have brought that question to anyone else's presence. You know what I mean? Like, there was just such a safety between my relationship with him at that time to be able to bring that without shame, without feeling like I had already dealt with this image of seeing him as like a God up there beating me. And, if I did anything wrong, that was already dealt with. So there wasn't like a distorted view of who he was at this time. It was just him and I and what I knew at that time. So I brought that before him, and I embarked on something that transformed my life to this moment. So two things I'll share with this. The one was the root that dealt with me choosing that for my life. I had already 2 children from another man. And God revealed to me, and this is how powerful it is to really get to the root of the issue and not deal with like the symptoms in our healing journey. And although that's like part of it, there's no such thing as embarking on your healing journey and not dealing with like symptoms. I feel like that's just what happens at first. Like, you're dealing with what you're dealing with what shows up, you're dealing with those type of things. But I think there's something so transformational about dealing with the root.
Yeah.
And I asked him to reveal the root of the choice to begin with. And the root was rejection. And let me explain. How the wound of rejection that took place very earlier on in my life manifested at that moment was I was concerned, worried. I guess I cared at that time about what people would think about me, of having another child outside of the father of my children, and what that would bring. And although I grew up in a household where it was always about appearance, and I brought that with me, it's very important to note that the root of rejection goes very, very deep. As much as we don't want to repeat that unconsciously at times, we do, before we're actually dealing with that in our healing journey. He revealed to me at that moment that I chose that because I was literally concerned more about what people would think instead of myself and the womb. And it revealed to me how much rejection has such a ripple effect in our lives and in our choices and in our day-to-day living that we can't like pinpoint at that moment, okay, that's rejection or that's coming from that place. We just don't do that at that time. But looking back, it was caring what other people thought. It was being identified as a woman that had children from multiple men. It was that type of thing. That quite honestly, society and people just see and speak about it in a certain way. So I would have to say that, like, understanding that the emotional root of what led to my choice was rejection. But the other part was, I asked, expose the lie that I believed. Mm-hmm. Now, the journey that a woman embarks when they're considering something like that is that, I think, has its own show within itself. Mm-hmm. But I in my time with him, I believed that life, what defines life in a womb, mm-hmm. what defines life in conceiving it as life, considering it as life, was connected to a heartbeat. I related life to a heartbeat. Like, if there's a heartbeat, there's life. That's not what he showed me during that time. He showed me that I believe that life starts at a heartbeat. And the truth that he revealed to me at that time is that life starts at its blood. Like, and when I looked at that, like, life is in the blood. It's not the heart, it's in the blood. And when I take that into a whole other thing, and we see what Jesus done for us, that opens like a whole other dialogue. But it made me feel like at that moment, believing that life starts at a heartbeat, showed me how limited I was in my thinking, showed me where I was, versus him showing me that life is blood. Life starts with blood, like, and understanding scientifically what happens with our bodies and the womb and things like that, and the timing of stuff. Yeah. It dispelled completely the lie of the enemy that it's okay to consider that because there isn't a heartbeat. That's the lie, that it's not until a certain time frame that there's a heartbeat. Versus taking a step back and looking at the essence of a life in a different way. And for me, that happened. I didn't see life at that moment as he was working through this thing with me and healing me in that process. I didn't look at life as a heartbeat. I had a totally different revelation about life. And there's so much that happened after that. I will say this, in this journey, like being healed by that, I never thought that God would use it in a certain way. And what I mean by that is, there was a time that I was serving in a church, and we know the environment that we were in as leaders. I remember having several conversations at the time about those areas, just like young women going through stuff. And I remember one young lady, like, seeking me for guidance, considering at the time to terminate the pregnancy. And I asked her what's contributing to her terminating the pregnancy. And she said fear. And it was the fear of the parents and the fear of what people think, and a first-time mother, very early 20s. And I was able to speak from the place of the lesson learned, not from the place of don't do this, you need to do this, but just being vulnerable and open to sharing with her what God taught me, being able to share with her those deeper truths that set me free and healed me from that, and being able to position her with just an understanding of what I was sharing with her and allowing her to exercise her freedom. And it wasn't sharing with her these lessons and what I had gotten and what God showed me to manipulate her or the situation. It was to present truth, my truth, and allowing God to do what he does. So for me, when this young girl walked out and there was another conversation that happened after that, it just showed me that there is absolutely nothing that we go through life that we've chosen to do that sometimes we have shame around, that's not used for a greater good. To be able to even at minimum plant seeds in someone else's life and know that someone else's journey isn't similar to mine. When I seen this woman, this young lady in front of me, and she's sharing this stuff with me, being a safe place for her was my first priority. And not because I had a sense of obligation, but because of what I had gone through. And I can see like she's at that place. There's so much more that we're positioned for when we remain open for healing, but also remain open as individuals that sometimes we're put in situations to plant seeds, to be able to give words of life to people that are navigating through something, and not trying to manipulate something. So I seen a full circle, Amanda, like all of that he's taken me through, revealing the motive in my heart, the why, then showing me the lies that I believed and being able to replace that with truth, and then being able to speak from that place of truth to someone else, plant a seed. I think it's just powerful. I think it's powerful. So I don't care what anyone's done. I don't care what someone's done. I don't care how they view that specific thing that they've done with such shame or regret or hatred sometimes. There's so much more to that. There's so much more to what we do, because what we do isn't about who we are and who we are as people. And I hope that people that are navigating through anything know that there's always something good to do when you're trying to be able to, I guess, seek somebody. Hopefully someone has someone in their lives. Because for me, at that season of my life, there wasn't that person speaking. I wasn't even looking for words of wisdom or words of life, but a guidance, something. There wasn't someone to walk alongside my journey, and those that were around did the best they could. So I think it's that what I'll share. It's very an intimate place for me, a place that no longer reigns anything but freedom, and love for truth that does set free.
Wow. Well, thank you, Alexandra. It's very vulnerable, just walking through your story, right, of what happened, and how you felt, right? That root of rejection that goes so deep. And, I think that's with that, right? Like all those feelings that you have identified, right? And worrying about people, right? What did they think? And just even the power of you sharing about not the heartbeat, but the blood. And, that was powerful. And I'm curious, did he tell you the precise time? Like, did he give you revelation as to what that meant with the blood?
Yes, that how blood forms in the wound is so much sooner. It's sooner than when we actually hear the heartbeat. For me, I took that as life isn't defined by heartbeat. We look at everything else that's going on in our world and an injustice for life. And sometimes we look at the area of abortion and we think that law is the answer. And I'll be quite honest with you. A law at that moment wasn't getting my attention. It wasn't tugging at my heart. It wasn't helping me see deeper within myself, maybe even within community, seeing what was lacking. It had absolutely nothing to do with law. It had to do with allowing God to deal with my heart condition that only He can do. And I feel so strongly about this because I'm not this individual woman that would say I'm pro-life. I am about my journey. I'm about people dealing with their heart issue that contributes to that, considering that choice. Like I'm about the heart matter. I'm about that. It's not about law, yes, no. It's the heart matter. And that for me matters. That for me is important. That for me is what helped me meet these women at a breaking point, at a point of consideration for abortion. It wasn't telling them, don't do that, don't. No, it was listening to them. It was being able to speak life and truth to what they were feeling. It was able to resonate with what they were navigating through in their life and not minimizing anything of what they were going through. I mean, these situations are always complex and unique, and for me, I can never tell. I had no desire. Let me say it this way. I had absolutely no desire when I've had these women before me to tell them what to do. I met them and I cared for the heart matter of it and allowed it to play its course. And I share that because sometimes when we think there's a yes and a no, a yes way to do something and a no way to do something, that we make it so law and religious and things like that, where we aren't sensitive to the heart of a person, to the current state of a person, to be able to be in tune with them at that moment and being able to listen and understand them and know that they're seen, know that you're able to see that they are scared, that they are afraid of what the parent would think, about what people would think, that's important, because fear in parenting is a real thing. It even comes with that when you hear that you're pregnant, you're expecting, like there is a level of that always steps in. But when it comes to that it's not the ideal situation. It's not planned, it's not expected, it's not that type. It comes with stuff, and being able to sit with people with an open mind and a heart to listen, telling them what to do and what not to do isn't the answer. I think deeper things come in those times, to be able to meet somebody, to be able to shift the heart, and meet them where they're at when it comes to what they're thinking and why they're thinking that. I think it's much more powerful than a yes, no, do, don't legalistic type of response to an individual that's considering that, because we're free individuals, we're created with free will. And if someone's before me considering an abortion, I'm not looking at them like that stuff shouldn't even be going through their mind. I'm not in their shoes at that moment. I don't know what's going on to contribute to something like that, but I want to be a vessel. I want to be a vessel to let a woman know that it's okay, that everything that she's feeling at that moment is okay. But I want to hear about her fear and be able to speak against that. Because it was a fear of man that led that for me. So I want to speak about the fear of men when it comes to that dialogue with the individual.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, and thank you for clarifying and, sharing more on that. I know it is a sensitive subject, right? And so you're really focused again, right, on hearing the individual and also just hearing where they're at, which is so important, and their heart, right? Like where are they? Can they express as they're processing, right, where they're at? So thank you for sharing that. In terms of your process, I know you shared a lot about the process, but if you can think of 3 or 5 simple steps, right, obviously to a more complex journey, what would be some of the top 3 things that helped you say, okay, I can do this one thing at a time, right? As I go through this journey, what are some things that you use that helped you in your healing journey?
Okay, so first of all, none of this happened until I surrendered my life to God. And I share that to say that healing is a spiritual, is something that we encounter in our spiritual journey. Healing is a spiritual gift for us in this lifetime. So I'll say the first thing is that I chose to have a relationship with God. And then after that, I chose to allow him to heal me. And I'll share this. God is very strategic. I feel like he's the master of strategy. Like,
For sure.
I feel like he is the master of strategy. So as he was leading me through it, because I was dealing with sexual trauma, it was like feeling that he was a safe place that allowed me to let him know I was bringing this before him, this area. So I would say the one thing was opening my life up to God. The second part was understanding that he was safe. And I want to speak this just in case there's someone listening that doesn't have a relationship with God. Whatever safety may mean for them, whether it's a relationship or a specific environment, whatever it may be, I think it's very important to feel safe before you're bringing something up like this to talk through or heal. I would have to say that's a second thing, just a level of safety. The other part was, and this is more specific to me as an individual, I like to call things what they are. I don't like to sugarcoat. I don't like to do any of that. I don't even like small talk. So for me, when I presented this for him, I presented like my request to him, which wasn't only healing, like I wanted you to expose the lie that I was believing and so on and so forth, that type of conversation. I will say that journaling was so instrumental, because although I didn't have a physical body to be able to talk through during this time, being able to let out my emotion and ways that I felt shame and areas that I felt shame, things like that, to be able to process that in writing, being able to let it out in some form was definitely beneficial. I would have to say the other item was always understanding that that was one area of how rejection manifested in my life, but there was going to be more. So it was always, at that time when I was dealing with that, it was remaining open to what that fear of man, fear of rejection was going to show me throughout my life. So it was open mind, open heart to the more that healing brings when we posture ourselves for it. I think it's that. So my relationship with God, journaling to process emotion, all that stuff, and remaining open, heart and mind, to the more that root was going to continue to reveal in my life.
That's great. So thank you for sharing that, right? And then you had mentioned your relationship with God, right, in that spiritual journey, and safety, right? Safety is huge in healing, right? When we don't feel safe, we're not regulated. That's the brain stuff, but we aren't regulated, right? And there's so many areas that can impact that we don't realize, right, in our body. So as you're mentioning that, certainly, and that takes time, right, to get to those roots. And also the journaling, right? So again, depending on that journey, it is like a lot of that, and getting to the safety, it takes time. We don't realize how critical safety is. And if you never known safety, right, that's a whole other teaching, and it's complex because safety is a lot of things. So, you mentioning that, Alexandra, definitely is important. Sometimes people don't understand. They hear the word safety, but there's dimensions to it. So, you saying about the journaling and getting through that and realizing that was your safety at the time, right? It's important. So thank you. So hopefully in the audience, women or men, if you're on this journey, perhaps maybe you're in different places with this, right? Just hearing this, or maybe going through your own healing journey. Certainly, we hope that you were able to hear and listen to what Alexandra shared, and take those wisdom, as Alexandra says, wisdom nuggets, those words of wisdom, and be able to hear that and receive that in your heart. And so, Alexandra, if there are, because I talked about people on the journey, and I know you've hit a lot of different areas, what is maybe a phrase or something that you would share to the woman, right? Or maybe a man, right? There's different people that are involved in this type of, right? Just the whole, it's complicated. So what would you say to people that are maybe in the Valley decision, right? Or maybe they're healing right afterwards, or going through kind of maybe similar journeys as you? What would you say to them?
Similar in my journey now, where I'm at, versus or where I was in my journey then.
You can maybe address both if you find words for it. Like maybe we can start for like where you were right in your journey, like before you have revelation. What would you say to that person?
It's not your fault. I would say it's not your fault. Letting them know it's okay. I feel like someone that's already made decisions like that, understanding the power of self-forgiveness, if it's something that they feel like, it's that they need. Because I don't know what someone's journey may be, but walking in the power that there is with acknowledging what we've done, but also forgiving ourselves for what we've done. And I say forgive ourselves because sometimes we think about ourselves like 10 years down the road, and we see ourselves from that place. We're not there. Just that place where I was in my younger 20s, I would say that just that they understand that there's so much power in self-forgiveness in any area that they may need or want it in. As a woman right now, looking back, I would have to say, make sure you walk every day of your life without giving a darn about what anybody else thinks. That's what I would say. I would just say that it's, I think it's such a life journey to, and sometimes it comes from a place of performing. You care about what the people think, so you perform. Like there's so many ways that actually takes place in our lives. But that's what I would say, continue to grow in the area that you don't care what someone would think, that people aren't influence your decisions. They may provide an input, they may provide their thought, but that you're not choosing to make decisions based on what someone would think of you. I would say that. And I think that's something that's evolving. Sometimes we feel like we've conquered that. We don't care what people think. But sometimes when people are close to our hearts, or we're embarking on a new journey, something new that's happening in our lives, and someone's not approving of it, sometimes it takes work, and it takes work day by day, especially when there's been a root of rejection for so long in your life. You just don't know how sometimes that shows. And having a new perspective on that alone, just it's another way that that it shows in my life, and being able to choose to work with that, I think is important.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing your journey, the vulnerability, and thank you for sharing simple steps, which again aren't always easy, right, with this. And also thank you for sharing to women, right, where you were and where they might be in their journey. So as always, thank you, Alexandra Lopez. She was on and sharing her story. This will be on the author and speaker page, and certainly every Wednesday join us, but this will be on here so you can watch it and get some nuggets. And we hope that you are well, right? And hopefully as you watch this, you can process and think about this. And also join us for Voice of Thunder if you're a woman. That will be available, and we're excited. I'm excited, not just even because I get to see all the amazing speakers. I'm so excited. I'm going to have my journal out so I can get what I need, and certainly you're welcome. So thank you, Alexandra. Thank you, audience, and have a good night. So I'm going to have to stop the live stream. Let me just see. Hopefully. Hold on. I'm having trouble with my computer now where it doesn't stop. Hold on. Everyone, while you're watching this, I'll have to take this out. It's so strange. Oh my gosh. Okay, hold on a second. The end button is gone. So everyone, this is why I'm not using this computer for the summit. Just saying. All right, so I'm gonna have to I don't know, Alexandra, I'm gonna have to probably close out, and then I'll probably touch base with you. But thank you everybody for being on here.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yes, bye. What's going on? Bye. Okay, there we go.